Good to have you on the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate, and we're going to put the spotlight on schools and the issue of reopening of schools. Now, in about 5 states across the country at least, schools have reopened starting today, but mostly for the senior classes from class 9 to class 12. Now, the academic activities have started in the schools. Many other states, in fact, are planning to reopen. So here is how things stand right now. In Karnataka, not just the schools for 9 to 12, but even colleges, undergraduate and postgraduate colleges who have hostels have reopened. 75% of the students in the colleges, though, have to be vaccinated. In Odisha, again, classes 9 to 12 have started. This is phase 1 for Odisha. And the classes will only be from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So not your usual entire day. And of course, all the COVID norms have to be followed wherever the schools reopen. Madhya Pradesh is the other state that has decided to open classes, activities for class 11th and 12th with 50% capacity, essentially meaning that students will go to school on alternate days for a few hours to attend the crucial classes. This is what, in fact, we've seen not just in Madhya Pradesh, but in Gujarat as well. Class 10 to 12 reopened with 50% capacity. Though in Gujarat, they've said attendance is not mandatory. They've left it to the students if they want to physically come to school or continue attending online. In Punjab, class 10 to 12 allowed to reopen. And most states have the guideline that the staff needs to be vaccinated. So your teachers and the rest of the staff needs to be vaccinated. Similarly, for Haryana, COVID norms need to be maintained. Attendance not mandatory for the classes where it has become. Now, Tamil Nadu has said teachers can come in, but they can come in to plan admissions, to work on all that admission-related stuff, to make your syllabus plan, chart out your teaching plan for the rest of the year. They haven't yet mentioned what the plan is for students to come to school. Rajasthan will reopen schools from August 2nd. Andhra Pradesh from August 16th. Delhi has said they are also constantly discussing, they are constantly monitoring the situation, but they are yet to take a decision on it. Now, in the past, a lot of medical experts have warned against opening schools for the sheer fact that one, students are not really vaccinated right now, so that's a problem. Two, there is still a possibility of third wave. So until unless we are able to give them a shield, a protection shield, they should stay at home and stick to online classes. That view now seems to be changing slightly, but there are still many who believe that schools shouldn't reopen. On the other hand, UNICEF, in fact, issued a statement earlier this month batting for opening of schools. In fact, they said that there are 19 countries where schools are still completely shut and millions of students are actually getting impacted before that. And in fact, UNICEF went on to say that the governments are shutting schools too often and keeping them closed for too long. Schools should actually be those places which are shut last and open first when you're going into any kind of a lockdown mode. That this has to be your last measure, not really the first step that you actually take is to shut down school. Why are they saying so? Because they say children are incurring losses that they may never be able to recoup. Those who don't have access to remote learning are being severely affected. Several other academicians, in fact, have come out and said that we are looking at an education emergency right now and we really need to get children back to schools. So where do you stand on this debate? As a parent, as an academician, school principal, even as a student, do you believe we now to seriously look at reopening schools? Does it need to be a centralized strategy? Do we leave it to the states? Do we wait for vaccination to be done at a larger scale before we reopen schools? Let's ask our panelists as well. And our phone lines will be open for you to call and participate. Dr. Sanjeev Rai, educationist and author, joins me this evening. Dr. Annie Koshi, principal of St. Mary's School in Delhi. Swati Negi Chibber, a parent, with us this evening. Dr. Samir Dalwai, developmental pediatrician, joining me this evening. Dr. Sunila Garg, Professor of Excellence Community Medicine at Maulana Azad Medical College, also part of the COVID India Task Force. Sanjog Bhosle, a parent, joining me this evening as well. Dr. Garg, let me start off with you as a medical expert. what would your advice be? Can we get our children back into schools? And I'm not just talking 9 to 12th. I'm actually even, talking junior level classes.
Tanvi, thank you for having me on the show. In fact, this topic has been discussed or being discussed since 2020 when we decided, that basically the children are the ones who are lesser affected, and particularly the younger age group when we talk of. So because you see, children have less amount of ACE inhibitors and they can, the infection is much milder in nature. The disadvantages of not going to school, if Dr. Dalwai is also here, I think he would concur with me that basically, the children who are there constantly at home, particularly the younger children, they are now, basically they have not heard their parents speaking because they're busy in their own work. And then, they're just signing, kind of, they cannot talk also. So they're not learned to speak as well. So that is where I feel that it is very, very important to start with the younger children. And simultaneously, we have to look from the public health perspective that how many millions of dollars we have lost basically because of, loss of this education, which can never be compromised. And midday school meal program, or we talk about the development of the children, or we talk about, basically what are the drivers of transmission. So I particularly feel that the school should have reopened long back. And we have already started with the vaccination of 18 to 45. So teachers have to be given a priority as well while we vaccinate other people as well. So this is where, corporate sector also has to come forward along with the other, philanthropist organizations to make sure that even the teachers, particularly when we talk of the private sector schools, they must be, vaccinated. And definitely the guidelines are there how to open the schools safely. Only right now we are talking of 19 countries, but other countries already have got the schools open. So we need to look into this matter very, very seriously. And we need to kind of, see that our children are able to go to school safely. And that's where our guidelines are already drawn out by Indian Academy of Pediatrics last year also. So I feel that we have to open the school. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Sunila Garg there believes that it's high time now we reopen schools. Let me bring in Swati Negi. Swati, as a parent, are you ready to send your child to school?
No, I am not at all ready because first of all, if we have waited almost 2 years, we can wait couple of more months. We wait till our children get vaccinated, at least first doses, and then we can see how it looks forward. Because school, even like when last time schools reopened in Chandigarh, I remember the schools were the hotspot. So I wouldn't want me being recovered with COVID, or I have recovered and all, but the post-COVID physical exertion and all the other pain and everything that I go through, I understand, and I wouldn't want any child to go through that. So I think India as a country, we're obsessed with academics. So we need to chill down on that part a little bit and let children be, let the children be at home. It's a good thing for them to bond more with their grandparents, with their parents. And as far as academic stuff is concerned, they are getting education. They are getting touch with online education and all their teachers, with their classmates. I think we can wait a couple of more months. That's my personal views.
Okay, so there are very clearly two different aspects that we have to keep in mind. One, Dr. Annie Koshi, of course, is for people who can easily take care of their children, whose children have access to everything that's required for an online education, parents and family support that can easily be given, and many in those segments don't want to risk it right now. There is also the other section where it's getting difficult for parents to be able to take care of their children. They have no money, no access to online education. They're completely falling out of the system. So clearly it's not easy to come to a solution. But what do you think should be our strategy, Dr. Koshi?
Well, definitely the parent who spoke now seems to have a big house with grandparents and cousins and dogs and cats, and is able to give an education in quotes to her child. I'm afraid that is not the situation in most families. Okay, there are many, many people who live in one room, or two-room houses, and they are stuck. Their children are stuck without going out. I'm afraid it's not good enough to wait a few more months. It's a crime that people are committing against children. I'm amazed that parents who have small children do not feel the need to make a protest about this, but they feel much happier to give in to the fear. The fear, ये होगा तो वो होगा, अरे ये होगा तो ठर्रा का दुकान खोल लो भाई, उस लाइन में खड़े हो जाते हैं और हम बच्चे को पार्क में ले जाएंगे, but we will not let them come to school. I mean, if you go to any park in Delhi, by the way, I have seen the parks are packed with children. You go to malls, parents are with children there. You go to a marketplace, there were children. But no, the school is a very dangerous place to go to, and they have to be vaccinated. I mean, really, as parents, are you going to vaccinate your children in the sense, where is this vaccination? How safe is that vaccination? Are your children going to be the guinea pigs of vaccination? Are you so happy to be vaccinated? I'm not sort of running down any vaccination, but I would think twice about vaccinating my child, especially since this disease has just been here long enough. I don't know if any children have been trialed on it, and definitely my kid doesn't have to be trialed on it. So if you were to look at the emotional state of a child, I fully agree that education is not schooling. Okay. And I think what they are missing most, when we talk about the skills of the 21st century, we talk about communication, critical thinking, creativity. All these are not taught in an online class, by the way. They are taught on the play field. They are taught during break time. They are not waiting to be taught through an online class. And please remember that you may have a computer and laptop, but most children have a small mobile, and that is no way an education. Secondly, I think what the government should say is that schools should open with certain kind of restrictions and then leave it to the parents to decide. Why, should the parents say, ki, I won't send and nobody else should go? I think it's a terribly unfair dog in the manger attitude to take. And we should definitely be very aware that children are, first of all, when they're online, are in the company of very unwanted people. Okay, not the best people to be on friends with. One. Two is that they're losing, man is a socio-emotional animal, okay? Where is the socio element? Where is the emotional element? One has to really think about all these things very closely. And I would want parents to be the ones who do, Azadi Utsav kind of thing on August 15th and say, "Hamare bachcho ko azad kar lo bhai."
No, there is no denying the fact that there are many, many challenges and, larger impact that is taking place right now, Dr. Koshi. But I just want to ask you this. And obviously, like I said, for different parents, for different students, it's going to be a very different answer. But the argument is that if we've done this for 1.5 years, maybe a few more months until we have a better handle on this situation.
I don't
this
think
is
so.
stemming from the fact that just up until a month ago, every expert in this country was telling us third wave is going to come and we are preparing and creating special pediatric wards because children may be more vulnerable. I mean, within the experts, they can't decide whether children may be vulnerable or not.
I want to say, with the genetically modified food that you're eating, with the kind of pesticides that you're eating, cancer is coming. With the kind of pollution in the air, your children's lungs are going. Okay, so smell the coffee. Look at all that's coming at you. Don't get bogged down with just this, this whole, this is it. Now, what I feel is, everybody feels commerce should open. Okay, the economy has to rise. So we look and think and do what is best for it. But we don't ever think that schools have to open. I mean, I'm saying if my objective is to open schools, then I will look for a way to do it safely and properly. But we don't even see that as one of our priorities. It's not seen as a priority. I'm saying, why is it not a priority?
Okay.
Children are not meant to be inside a house. They're meant to be outside playing.
Okay, fair enough. It needs to be a priority for people and then it will automatically become a priority for governments, when we make them realize that it is important to us, they will have to treat it with that kind of priority. Dr. Sameer Dalwai, where do you stand on this debate right now? There are very, very strong opinions on both sides to open schools right away because it's an education emergency, or to delay it by a few months since we've done it for so long already. Our children's lives are at stake.
So, good evening, Tanviji. I work with both parents as well as schools. And I tend to agree for some parts with both of them. Both of them have their points of view. I do think what Dr. Koshi said is true, that not everything is as comfortable as particular communities may have for their children. At the same time, I see Mrs. Chibber's point of view that when it comes to children, everybody is very, very emotional about it, and nobody can uh, openly want to expose their children to a danger that is not yet defined. Having said that, let me go back to say that the schools, as we say now, and what Dr. Koshi so eloquently described, is actually something that was the result of the industrial revolution running in from the 17th, 18th centuries, and that is what was going on all happily until the time COVID struck. I would now like to say that going back, whether you open schools in 2 months or 4 months, I think the world has changed forever. And we need to get that point straight. So, first and foremost, there is no going back to school as if it is business as usual. Because in the last 1.5 years, the mental agony and the mental torture that children, on the whole, across the world, at least across the country, have gone through, has been nothing that they have seen in their lives, or we have seen in our lifetimes, or a few generations before us have seen. And hence, to be honest, if you are still in the dark about whether the third wave is coming or no, I have no clue whether anybody has any definite way of judging what exactly has been the psychosocial impact on children, and even further, what has been their academic achievement over the last year and a half. I think this is where the debate should be right now, because schools may open 2 months later, or 15 days later, or 3 months later, and I am sure that it cannot be a compulsory decision. The governments will have to leave it to the parents whether they're okay to send them right now or no. But while we debate that, we need to have a very important debate. How are we going to open schools? Now, that debate has two parts. What is the physicality of it? I mean, do you do it every day? Do you do alternate day? Do you have 50% children coming on different days? Is it hybrid model? Are there enough sanitizers? Is there running water? Because I'm sure there are many schools in India where there is no water, so forget about running water. So this is the physical aspect of social distancing, masking, and looking after COVID. But the other more important aspect is, does anybody have a clue what exactly has been the impact on academics for children? Does anybody have a clue that the kid who was in class 5 last year, who did not go for the whole year to class 5, he will be beginning school, say, hypothetically on the 15th of September in grade 6th. What is the teacher going to do on day 1? Is she going to start with the lessons of class 5? Is she going to start with the first lesson of class 6, or the 4th or the 5th lesson, as would have been planned in the pre-endemic time? Nobody has a clue, and I'm worried that we are not talking about it, because it would be a mistake. It would be a mistake to start with academics. Children have faced the worst situation of their life, the worst uncertainty which prevails. They've seen deaths at home. They've seen losses all across them. They've seen fear all over. And it's with this paranoia, if they come back to school and if we rush them into academics, that's going to be a disaster. Because not all children learn equally. And we have no clue which child in that one classroom, how much they have learned in the last 1.5 years. So the real discussion should be on how are we going to open schools. And the last point I'd like to make is, for God's sake, we need to start not with academics. First week or 2 weeks, let the children just get there, get them to acclimatize, let them just chat with each other, speak to each other, sing, dance, make merry. Let them get rid of the stress that they are carrying for the last year and a half. And I agree with Dr. Koshi, that cannot happen at home. That can happen only when they meet their peers and friends.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I have a point. Actually, you know, to a certain extent, Dr. Koshi herself mentioned this. We are saying that they're losing their social skills. We are saying that they haven't been able to interact with people, but we are also saying, and we've all observed it, it's the same in Mumbai as it is in Delhi or in any other city. I think it's more in smaller towns than bigger cities, that children are stepping out. They're all playing in the evenings. They're all interacting with their friends. They're on streets. They are in parks. parents, if they are traveling, most of North India, if families have traveled, their children have gone to the hills, had a great time, come back. All of that interaction is taking place. So, Dr. Dalwai, do we still believe that the social aspect or social interaction is going to be so challenging, especially for the younger ones?
Absolutely. There are many children who have been used to being spoon fed at home, literally. They
Yeah.
are used to seeing their mama and dada all day at home. It may lead to some kind of change and separation anxiety in some kids, not necessarily the smaller kids. Children have been used to 24/7 online, just watching screens and mobiles and even studying. It is not to be assumed that it is very easy for them to adjust to this. It is more difficult when we shut down schools where children had to stay away from schools and adjust at homes. Now, after a year of being in lockdown, being locked up at home, face to face with their parents, all through the day, having a totally disrupted schedule and a totally disrupted social life, to expect them to come back on schedule and to do everything like clockwork. Hey, what? Even the railway trains which have been shut down for the last 1 year need some servicing. They need to run at for 20 kilometers an hour before you can speed them up to 200. So if they've been going out still with their parents, school is a totally different ballgame altogether. It requires a schedule, it requires a preparation, and most important, it requires the academics. What are parents going to do?
Yeah.
Are they going to expect their children to complete the 2 year syllabus in the next 6 months?
Okay.
If they do that, I can tell you it can be disastrous.
Okay, I'm going to pick up on that academic point in just a bit, but let me bring in Sanjog Bhosle as well. Mr. Bhosle, as a parent, are you allowing your child right now to go out, interact with his friends, play with his friends? And if so, are you then now ready to also send him to school? Do you want schools to reopen? Mr. Bhosle, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you so much. As you seeing from last 2 years, I think so. It was a difficult part for all the students to cope up with the education. I think that the children who are into very pre-primary schools for junior KG and senior KG, first standard, second standard, they must be feeling more difficult to cope up the studies, because as their teachers' attention should be more on students when they are into class. But currently, I think so because of the online school, the proper students at home, they are very relaxed. They are not that comfortable. So the education should be at school only. I feel that the proper security should be taken out, and the way everything should be managed out for children, and that way they should continue with the schools.
Okay, one aspect though, which we haven't touched upon yet, Dr. Rai, is also where do the schools stand? The last time after the first lockdown, when the debates began, the parents said, well, the schools will have to take responsibility that my child doesn't get COVID, that they ensure all norms are followed, and the managements of the schools turned around and said, hey, we cannot give you that assurance. How are we going to ensure that? Which is also a reasonable thing to say. Now, are the schools still hesitant on that factor, that if we call in children there is a breakout, then what?
Yeah, thank you, Tanvi. I think we have spoken about the parents and the children and other medical conditions and preconditions for opening the schools, but we have not discussed yet the teachers, one of the most significant stakeholder of this debate. I think you have raised a very valid point. The confidence building measures should be taken with the teachers, because since March 2020, when the lockdown started, they have been working in one role or other, from data collection of the people affected with COVID, distribution of ration. So all kinds of work teachers have been doing since March 2020. And they have also lost many near and dear people, especially in the second wave. So they are also not very confident to start school from tomorrow onwards. So I think one exercise should be done with the teachers, because their confidence should be back. They are also suffering with the mental fatigue, emotional fatigue. And particularly considering the current scenario, schools can be open, because the data says that in June we have 80% cases were from 125 districts. Now in July, the data says that 80% cases are coming from the 90 districts. So in a phased manner, we can start schools, because schools' role is not only in cognitive development and academic development. Schools play a role in socialization process as well. And other panelists have already highlighted the need of children to coming out and meeting the peers and start going to school. But at the same time, I think we cannot go straight forward and say that all the schools of the state should open from tomorrow. I think and even the 50% data, I think 50% schools should open doesn't make any sense. I think gradually we can start with 10%, 25%, 30%, because school principals also need to maintain a roster that the teachers who have the chronic disease, the teachers who have the pregnancy, so they should be given some relaxation. And similarly, nobody is ready to take the responsibility, like you said earlier. So the district administration may say that parents should give one affidavit saying that, okay, I'm responsible, I'm sending my children. Teachers may say that, okay, you take the responsibility. So, but gradually, I think schools should open, and because then we can sense the normalization, because the pandemic is a reality and we have to live with it.
Okay, a very interesting point actually raised by Dr. Rai as well, and before that Dr. Samir Dalwai. Let me bring in Dr. Annie Koshi on that aspect. How do we reopen schools? If that's the conversation, who designs this structure? Do we leave it to individual schools, the city authorities, or should there be a national plan about it?
No, I don't think we can leave it to schools, just like when the government decides to open, say, the metro or to open the malls, then they say that there will be so much of footfall, there will be the timing. So I think that you have to set certain rules in place, and that would be something like all schools who would open will open for, say, 1/3. I'm just giving you an estimate, right? Sure. So if I have, say, 2,000 children coming in, now I will only have 1/3 of that, okay, or 1/4 of that coming into school. So that means automatically a space that is designed for a large number is now got open spaces available for a smaller number. Now the school can decide, and in fact the government can suggest that you call, say, class 12, because they have to get ready for the board exam, and practicals have to be done, etc. So class 12 and class 10 can be the first to be called in small numbers, and then say one section from middle school and one section from junior school. So ultimately you have a cohort from each part of the school coming in, but the whole school is empty, and the very, very small number in school. The syllabus again is suggestive. I think everybody should be left to do what they have, but as the doctor previously spoke, the focus has to be on the interactive parts of schooling or education. That is practicals, PT, dance, craft, debates, all those kind of things would be put into place. You don't have to come in to do, a total theory class, okay? So that should be another thing. Of course, masking, sanitization, I don't think any of those fever mechanisms work, but, dil ko khush karne ke liye, you can take that, fever gun on everybody's forehead and see if they have fever. So that all we can do. So corona norms or the social distancing norms should be followed. So government has to lay down those rules, and schools have to give an undertaking that they will follow that. Now, as far as the responsibility of whether a school can become a hotspot. Okay, now I think there is as much chance for a school to become a hotspot as there is for a park to become a hotspot. Okay, so I mean, we have to take that risk at the interest of our children. The doctor who spoke previously has talked about, what would the academic standards be. I want to point out that first, the socio-emotional frame of the child has to be at a particular level for him to take any academics into him. You can't say that I'm going to be a sad, depressed child and come to school and start to study. I mean, there is no such thing. A sad child, a depressed child. We have been calling class 12 in very small numbers. And you won't believe it was raining. In a normal school day, on break time, everybody goes out and there's a big fight because everyone is wet. Now they're not going out, and I'm saying, bahar jao, bheeg ke andar aao. You have to push them out. They won't go out. Otherwise they would be stealing each other's tiffin to eat it. Now they're all sitting quietly. It's so sad what is happening to those kids. So yes, the government has to put certain norms in place that schools have to follow, suggest that, but then leave it to the schools. Because you see, every school is peculiarly their own. I mean, why will I compare my school to, say, an international school? Or why will I compare my school to a government school and a KV school, an MCD school? Everybody has different problems. Correct. And different ways to tackle it. So, Dr. Rai talked about the teachers, and I personally feel that the minute the teachers were allowed in, you see, this divorcing of the workplace with the home. It's all very nice to say I'll work from home, but in the home, your kid is coming, your ayah is coming, this is coming, that is coming. In the middle of that, you have to do your class, maybe shut your door against your little child. It's extremely, extremely stressful to the teacher to take her class from home. And they are happier to be away and to have a barrier between home and workplace. I think they give their best. They're able to read, research, everything before they can. Corona has taught us, if nothing else, that what we thought of as education is actually not education. All of us who went very happily onto online and we were feeling so mighty thrilled, Google Sheet bana liya, Padlet bana liya, ye bana liya, we are now so tech savvy. But actually, this is all a facade for education. Okay. This is not the education. That is when you realize that, and as Sir has just pointed out, we have to see how do we actually learn? How do we give chances to our children to be creative, to be self-learners? And that is the important thing. So the answer to your question is yes, government has to give certain guidelines, but the schools have to follow it. And, we have to sort of depend on God for certain things, and that is that children will come. Yeah. And when they come, if there is a cold and a cough, well, we sort of deal with it like that. We go for treks. When we go for treks, we tell the parents, we go and we make full effort to make the trek as safe as possible. We do river rafting with our children. But anything can happen. We have to make sure that nothing happens. But if something happens, we will do the best we can in such circumstances.
Well, yeah,
that is the way to go forward.
That would be an extremely rational explanation to give to the parents, but I just want to point out we've had many, people call us up or on our shows earlier who've simply said, no, the school needs to take this responsibility. You've sent your child to school, it's the school's responsibility. It can't become a hotspot. And if it is, then all hell is going to break loose on the teacher, on the principal and the management of the school. That is not a situation that one would want, where rational explanations then might not work. And let me just bring in Anuba Sahai, and then Dr. Dalwai and Dr. Garg, I'll come to you. Anuba Sahai is the head of a parent association and also has very strong views on this aspect of whether it's time to reopen schools for all classes or not. Anuba.
Thank you for having me in this show. And right now, I don't think it is the right time to open school until teachers, staff, and even children are vaccinated. Reopening of schools can become a super spreader, which happened in the month of January. we opposed the reopening of school even in the month of January, but still many state governments went ahead. They reopened the school. Children as well as teachers were found COVID positive. Many schools in Maharashtra and other states also, we saw that the teachers and even students were COVID positive, and immediately they had to shut down the school within a week's time. Immediately they had to shut down the school within a week's time. So I don't think that it is the right time to open school even now, until unless the teachers and staff are vaccinated, even the students are vaccinated. Why are we hurrying? I don't know why there is so much hurry to open the school when the students are having online access to classes. I can understand there are many students who are out of school due to not having access to online classes. So it is a responsibility of the state government to provide digital access to all these students. Right now, many government schools are shut down. So the government is having all the funds with them. They can utilize those funds and distribute tablets. They give them internet access to those who are not able to reach, those who are not in a position to have access to internet classes, online classes. So my request and humble appeal to the state government and central government also, first you vaccinate teachers and staff, and then you reopen the school. And in Maharashtra, I will tell you, recently we got to know that in one of the city or one of the village, hardly 30% teachers are vaccinated. So how can we even take such risk and reopen school when we are still in COVID? COVID has still not gone.
Okay, let me take that point, medical point across to Dr. Sunila Garg. Dr. Garg, would you advise that at least when schools reopen, the staff is vaccinated? And what about children vaccination? Do we need to wait for that?
See, I will say that, Tanvi, mask is your most important social vaccine. In first wave, we never had vaccination, but still we protected ourselves. And for every parent, let me bring to their attention that fourth survey results are out, and children have got seropositivity of 60%. That is, from where did they get this infection? So should we blame the parents that they did not protect their children well? That is one of the very important things which they have to consider. That 60% of the children, as per fourth survey, are already seropositive. So whom do we blame? Is it the teachers or it is the families we should be blaming for? Number one. Number two is that so much of dropout of children have taken place from school because India is so very big. We need to remember that exactly, whole of the country is not the elite India. We have to look at whole of country. So we need to involve all the stakeholders, whether we talk of education department, even Gram Panchayats, even the teachers, even, the parents. So everybody has got to make a decision. Remember that basically children are not empty vessels. They have to be filled and they have to be given quality education and quality concepts. So I feel that it is very, very important that everybody needs to understand that with proper masking is your most important social vaccine, I will say. And very soon, in September also, we will have vaccines for the children. But right now, we have got vaccines for 18 to 45. And I'm sure that if we go ahead with that, that will be, we should open the schools fast. That is it.
Dr. Dalwai, would you like to add to this?
Yes, Dr. Garg as well as Mrs. Sahai have raised very pertinent issues. And let me give it first to Mrs. Sahai by saying that for the next few months, nobody can force parents to send their child to school. Having said that, there are also schools in this country where children come for a midday meal. The incidence of malnutrition in rural or underprivileged areas is rising because they are missing this. Children come to school, some of them from backgrounds where it is the only sanity that they see in the whole day. So we cannot equate all children across this country to the same thing. And having said that, let me also say, can we insist on a teacher being vaccinated? Okay, let me say disclaimer. I have taken both my vaccines and I hope all of you take vaccines. But if a particular teacher does not wish to take vaccine, would you keep her out of the school? And if a particular student's parents don't want to give their child a vaccine, would you keep him out of the school? Plus, we don't know what's going to happen with the variants. The world has changed. We will have to start school sooner than later. Let's start them as soon as possible with a small number of parents who are willing to send their children to school. It cannot be only the school's responsibility. It has to be a joint responsibility. The school takes responsibility to maintain the protocol or precautions which the government has set. And parents, like Dr. Koshi said, have to look for the best. Having said that, Dr. Rai mentioned about the teachers. And I think it is very important. We can't expect the teachers to treat COVID, but we should spend some time training them about how they will handle the children psycho-emotionally for the first couple of weeks, how they should interact with the child to allow the child to express, how they should get the child to open up and to speak. Mind you, there are many children who are happy staying at home because they were being bullied in school, especially children who had learning disabilities and many other problems. So, though I completely give it to Mrs. Koshi about how wonderful schools are, there are many children for whom schools is a nightmare. They may be better off at home. Suddenly, to make them come to schools, they have to. No two things about it. But we need to train our teachers maybe for the first month or two to listen to the children, to hear what they have to say, to listen to what they have gone through, to let them express themselves and talk what they want to say. And here again, I know teachers are burdened, but I would really make a plea to get our teachers involved in this, because they will have to pick up that child who is looking anxious, who is looking depressed, and report him or refer him. So teachers' responsibility is extremely important and crucial once the schools start.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I think, this point though has been made earlier as well about how the 1.5 year has impacted, it would have impacted a child's mindset as well and skills. I think it's but obvious. You look at adults, you pull out a bunch of adults from their homes who've been working from home for the last 18 months and put them in a room and they won't know what to talk to each other after the first 5 minutes. That's how badly our social skills have broken right now. So, I mean, it's the same for children unless you've allowed them to step out. I know some of you want to make points, but if I can just go across to a few of our viewers who've been patiently waiting and listening on the phone line. Hamdan is calling us from Bengaluru. Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, ma'am.
What would you like to say? Should schools reopen?
My name is Hamdan and I'm from Bangalore. I'm currently studying in 11th standard.
Oh, Bangalore has opened their schools, Hamdan. Did you go to school today?
No, they haven't.
Not your school yet?
No, they haven't started for schools. It's only for degree colleges. I'm still in 11th.
Okay. Are you ready to go to school?
My parents are completely open to the idea of reopening of schools.
Okay.
As Dr. Samir said, that students have to go to emotional pressure as well. So I think we need to train the teachers and we need to make sure that the teachers help the students follow the COVID norms inside the classroom. There shall be a proper social distancing in a classroom and the strength of each class must be reduced.
Yeah.
Also, there's another problem of vaccinations. Now, only people who are above 18 years of age have the ability to take a vaccine. I think I would like to suggest to the government to decrease the age.
Well, Hamdan, I'll tell you what, the government can't decide on decreasing the age because we haven't conducted trials on the younger ones yet, and unless those trials are conducted and that data is available from the study, we will not be able to take a decision on whether the vaccines are safe for our youngsters. But thank you for calling and sharing your views. Shivakumar on the phone line calling us from Mumbai. Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Tanvi. Tanvi, my question is for Dr. Dalwai. He's a leading pediatrician in Bombay. Doctor, while I agree with you in terms of the emotional quotient of a child, why I have a basic fundamental question, which is the world is changing and the world has changed. Why aren't we accepting the change and adapting to the change, adapting to the technological development in the world? And I agree that this is not the time to start the school. We need to wait, and we need to wait it out till we are reasonably sure that no one's going to get affected.
Okay, Mr. Shivakumar, thank you for calling. Dr. Dalwai, would you like to take this? And then to Dr. Koshi.
I completely agree with Mr. Shivkumar ji that the world has changed and we will have to be open to all kinds of situations that come in. And hence, we must prepare for them. And not just the physical changes, but even the emotional changes and how to deal with the students. That's a very vital point he has made.
Dr. Rani Koshi, yes.
Oh, I want to say that in education, we have a vision for the future. Now, our question is, what is the vision for the future? Do we want children who are, happy to be in front of a computer who are happy to talk to a computer, who are happy to, not be meeting anybody, but, they are tech savvy and all our work is done online. Do we want that kind of work? So what I'm saying is an educator has a vision. What does she want in the future? What kind of future do I envisage for our children? Based on that, we work from today for that future. That future is 20 years down the line, 25 years down. So when the gentleman talks about, things are changing, things are changing. We're going to go on to the moon. There's going to be no, water there. So they will be drinking some kind of chemically prepared water, I'm sure. And oxygen, they'll have to be in pressurized suits out there. So maybe we should, sort of just suit up our children from now on and let them learn how to live in pressurized suit. So one has to understand that you don't have to change for everything. There are people who homeschool their children, who decide not to send them to school at all, who give their children food that is grown at home and not that has been, has any kind of pesticides or anything. Those kind of people make an option. And I just wanted to add to what Dr. Dalwai said, that, it's not just that the Anganwadis have stopped serving food, but even the polio shots that were given on a regular basis were stopped. Can you imagine 2 years of no polio shots? You're looking for a pandemic. Look what's going to happen to the kids. Only because the doctor couldn't come to the school and give the polio shots. Our school was a center. Sunday, he would sit there and the children would come and take their polio shots by the government, which was free.
Yeah.
Ab wo band ho gaya.
Yeah.
So there are terrible repercussions, and we're going to sort of reap all that in due course.
Yes,
sure.
in fact, let me pick up that point. And Dr. Rai, if you want to come in here as well. A lot of what we see is obviously, limited to the big cities with better infrastructure, with better accessibility. But what happens beyond that and to people who don't have that kind of access or money? And the damage that is being done there. The damage, in fact, I was reading this report, a field study that's been carried out by the Azim Premji University, and they spoke about loss of learning a language that you learned a year ago, or even, what you learned in math a year ago. All of that gone completely in the last 18 months.
Yes, I think I have just came back from 8-9 days field visit to few districts of Jammu and Kashmir, and earlier I visited Uttar Pradesh. I think this is not the case of only the access to school and compensating the learning loss. I think if we go by the data, we will find the increased number of child laborers because children are leaving the school and joining the workforce. Similarly, the chances of early marriage is very high because if girls are not in school and sitting at home, the chances are very high they will get married very, very soon. Similarly, like the issues of nutrition because of the midday meal and Anganwadis have already been raised. So this is not only related to school opening and the learning loss, because in US, the parents did demonstration to open the school because children are at home, so they have to stay at home. If children will be in a school, they will go to work. So in India also, in rural areas, this is the situation. In urban areas also, one of the parents have to leave the job and stay at home with the children. So these kind of scenarios are there. So we cannot only use the lens of protection and health. And similarly, this is the world fifth largest school closure. More than 40 weeks, the schools are closed. And if we wait that situation will improve, the health infrastructure will improve, the vaccination will be completed, and ICU beds will will be more in numbers, and then we'll open a school. So I think we won't be able to open the schools in another 4-5 years. So children have to live with this reality the parents are living in.
Anuvasai, would you want to come in here?
See, what I would suggest to the government and also would like to appeal to all the panelists that see, uh, we know that now the children are out of school and we have to bring them back. It is the responsibility of the state government as well as all the stakeholders that we have to bring them back to school. Right now, we know that it is very difficult for a parent also to send their child to school until unless anyone takes responsibility. But most of the schools, neither schools nor state government is in a position to, or they are willing to take responsibility if anything happens to any child. What about if anything happens to their child or their family members? As if the to infection, if they will get infected, whether government is going to give any kind of insurance and medical benefit to all these children and their family members. No, they are not going to give. We are only going to spend from our pocket. Why most of the children in village areas are out of school? Reason being not only that the schools are shut down, reason is that many of the parents have lost their job. That's why they are now forcing their children to go for this child labor. Even if you will reopen the schools, we have seen the economic this thing in our country. How we have many people have lost job. Many people in villages and even in remote areas and even in urban areas, they have lost job. So they are forcing their children to go and work for earning their livelihood. So that will continue until unless our country is economically strong.
So
So
that
that
is one
is
aspect for sure. That is one aspect for sure. But the argument, the other argument is for a different reason, which is, Anubha, that when the parents have to go out for work and there is nobody to take care of that child, they rather marry off that young girl because she can't be in schools. The school's shut, and so they are marrying off these younger children. We've seen these instances even in Maharashtra. A large number of such instances have been reported. So that's that is one concern. Child labor obviously is the second concern. Loss of education, loss of social skills is the third and the fourth concern as well. But I want to ask you this. Parents are so wanting to put the responsibility on the schools for their safety to say, what if COVID takes place? But you wouldn't keep your child locked up for 2 straight years. You're still sending them to the park. You're still, taking them to the market. Come festival, you will still take them to their uncle's house or to the nearby hill station. So why have this different benchmark then when it comes to schooling?
Just one quick question to
just if Anubha can just respond to this first. Yeah.
I tell you one. Yeah. See, when children are with parents, they are under parents' observation. They are under parents' supervision. But once they will be inside school, there are many schools they don't have CCTV. There are many schools, government schools, they don't have CCTV. So, what is the guarantee that the school is going to take responsibility and the child will be safe in the school? That's why parents are worried. When the children are with parents, they take full responsibility. They are under parent supervision. But once they are in school, they are under school supervision. So someone has to take responsibility. Outside school, yes, parents will take responsibility every time they take. But once the child is inside the school, it is the school's responsibility which none of the schools are willing to take. Not even the school, even government is not willing to take any responsibility if anything happens. So schools can be reopened in a staggered manner, no doubt I can say. But the online classes should continue. That is what most of the parents are requesting, that online class should continue. Those who are in a position to get access to online class, they will continue, and it should continue in blended mode. In a staggered manner, if we will reopen the school, many parents will agree to that. If we will force the parents that no, you have to send your child to school, they will not give you online access, then many parents will oppose and they may go for homeschooling. So my appeal to all the authorities and panels and even the government.
Yes.
That you reopen
No, so you're right. It has to be in a staggered manner. It has to be properly planned. There have to be central guidelines, state guidelines. Schools need to ensure those guidelines are actually followed. It will be a task, but you got to ensure that the youngsters keep their mask on. That's their biggest line of defense. Dr. Rai, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah. Just one quick question to Anubhaji, that who takes the responsibility when you admit a relative or a family member to a hospital? Who takes the responsibility? You sign the paper in advance before they take them to the operation theater. Why you are making this shifting the responsibility to school principals and teachers? So of course, as suggested by the other panelists, that school will operate in a standard operating procedures manner. but it can't be the responsibility of the 50 students or the 500 student. Parents have to take some responsibility in this regard. The second issue is that online education, the government's own data says that less than 20% children have access to online education. And recently, one survey was done by the civil society group. 59% parents of the private schools, 80% parents of the government schools are not satisfied with the quality of online education which is being delivered currently. Thank you.
And I also wanted to say, Anita, when you said, no CCTV, let me tell you
Sorry, one at a time. Yes. Dr. Koshi first, yes.
I wanted to say this whole issue of CCTV. If you think CCTV is the greatest thing going, you have to have another thought about it. Because let me tell you, a teacher's eyes are the best thing that you have. No CCTV is keeping a watch. You only get to know about something that has already happened with the CCTV. It's not that, somebody is sitting like this, and people who watch CCTVs, is just a waste of money. It's been put out there because everybody said, laga lo, but koi zyada farak nahi pad raha.
I think that's just something to keep some of the parents happy, some of the overly obsessed parents who want to also keep an eye, or at least know that they can keep an eye as to what's happening.
Parents are the most irresponsible parents. Yes. Okay, so let's not say, teachers and school and who will take responsibility. I want to know which parent is taking the responsibility for a proper education. If we ask parents to sit in a class, online class with their child, nahi, दिल कच्छा पहन के पीछे घूमेंगे या शोर मचा रहे उधर, ये सब हो रहा है class में. I mean, if you have to really watch the classes to see what all happens in a classroom, the children are sitting in a room where the whole family is having a ball and she is supposed to take a class. This online class is the biggest natak going on, ma'am, really.
Dr. Koshi, very interesting insight that you shared there, but maybe another day we'll have another debate on the merits of online classes and the pros and the cons there. For now, we are completely out of time. So a big thank you to all of the panelists who have joined us. Suffice to say, viewers, more and more experts are now saying that it is high time we reopen schools because there has been a massive impact on the children, on the students. They're not just their academics, but their overall development. And that's something that we need to keep in mind. And not all parents are actually able to ensure that they give all the access in the world and all the time and support in the world to their child when it comes to a good education, which is where schools play an important role. But the parents, the students, teachers, the governments will all have to come on the same page and agree that it has to be a joint responsibility. The blame cannot be put on one side. It has to be a coordinated effort, simply keeping one thing in mind: the future of our children. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.